All right, guys, welcome to the second session of the brainstorming session by the Startup Club. So every month we do this. We have this session on brainstorming where we take a topic that is submitted by the users, by our members, and we have a link on our official website, thestartupclub.info, where you can go and fill out a form to register a topic on a brainstorming session. And we'll every month we'll pick a topic that the members submit, and we'll have a discussion on that. So this discussion is meant to be a space where different stakeholders, different members of the startup ecosystem come together and have a discussion on the topic, and we basically get to listen to other people's perspectives, narratives, and the decision making that other people involve themselves with, and just to be informed as to what the community thinks, right? And I feel like there are very few spaces where this can happen. I don't see any lot of networking opportunities where you can have this kind of a session where we just talk about a certain topic. So that's the reason why we're doing this as part of our community. And this is this is going to be a really interesting session. Last month we had a discussion about how to manage startup teams and things like that, and there were a lot of useful insights shared. So this the topic for today's session is high paying jobs in abroad versus creating a startup in India. Okay, so I'm sure that a lot of you guys have that option. You know, whether you go abroad for a high-paying job, or you have an option to take a risk and create a startup in India. And I have personally I have some experience with both these things. So I have an education in neuroscience I have a degree in neuroscience that I got in the US, and I returned back to India. My intention was not to return back to India, but several things happened that made me come back, and I'm actually really grateful that I did. It was not an easy decision, but it was really something that I'm grateful for, because now I have a couple of startups that I've started, and things are really exciting. You know, things are. I feel like I would probably never enjoy being an employee as much as I enjoy being an entrepreneur, even though I haven't really reached to a point where I'm starting to rake the benefits of being a startup entrepreneur. So that's the perspective that I'm coming in with, and I have a lot of things to say and I have a lot of things to discuss. But I quickly want to take the time to go around and introduce each other. Like let's have a quick introduction. So maybe each of you can go around and just tell us your name, your where you're from, and what you're doing right now, and maybe just a little bit of hint of like what you think about this topic. Bapu, your audio is so low. I can't really hear you. So don't feel shy, guys. Ananya, Madhu, Shardul, please unmute yourself and introduce yourself. Tell us where you are from and what you're doing and what you think about this topic.
Hey guys, am I audible now?
Yeah, now you're audible, Bapu.
Yeah, so I'm Bapu. I'm from Odisha. Right now, I'm working in a startup in Bangalore. I'm a software developer.
Okay. And what is your general stance on this topic? Like, what do you think is the preferable?
Yeah, I think it will be great to take risk and start something in India instead of going abroad and getting a high-paid job. But at the same time, I'll suggest also we should go abroad to get some idea on which things we can work on, and so that we'll get some new different insights. Then we can start anything in India. We can plan later.
Right.
Yep, that's my view.
Thanks so much, Bapu. Anybody else
Thank
wanna
you.
go ahead? And by the way, guys, like if you're coming in with the plan to I'll just be here quiet, watch everybody else talk. That's not how brainstorming sessions happen. You guys have to participate. This is a very interactive, participatory session. So really hope you guys can not feel so shy and participate. Hi, Prasanna.
Hey, hi.
Yeah, we're able to hear you. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us where you're from and what you do and what you generally think about this topic.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Prasanna Kulkarni. I've been a software professional for last 18 years. Settled in Bangalore. I'm in a leadership position now and working remotely. I've had exposure working in startups also at the beginning of my career. So yeah, at some point I do feel like I could get my hands try my hand in an entrepreneurial venture sometime. But there is always this feeling that various people around you who have traveled abroad. Um, so should I explore that option as well? So yeah, there is this dilemma, or there is this melancholic thought process always in the mind regarding that. I thought this is a good subject. I would like to hear others' perspective as well, and that's why here I am with only my camera on.
Okay. Thanks so much, Prasanna. Um, yeah. Anybody else would like to go? Like, who else wants to introduce yourself?
Hello, sir.
Hi, Shardul.
Hello. Sir, I don't have much experience in these things because I'm just a student right now.
Mhm.
I just cleared my 12th class, and recently I had a idea of startup when I live in Pune, and I had an online meeting with some investors in Mumbai, and they said that your startup is means likely good, so they asked me to incorporate the company.
Mhm.
So right now, if you want me to talk about the topics of like startup in India and high paid jobs in abroad. So I think that I'm not against that high paid jobs in abroad, but I think we should likely to go there for some years for taking some experience or trying to build a network so that it will be easy for us to start a startup in India.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Shardul. And that's pretty much what we're doing at the startup club. So we're completely on board with that. Yeah. Thank you so much, Shardul. Who else would like to go introduce yourself?
Hello, sir.
Hi, Ananya.
Hello, sir. I'm Ananya. I'm from Karnataka, and I'm first year engineering student studying in SGMIT, and I belong to EC branch.
Okay.
About the startup versus the abroad job,
Ananya, I think we lost your audio. You're muted, by the way. Can you unmute yourself?
hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, now you're audible. Yeah,
Hello.
yeah, you're audible now.
Okay, sir. Sir. About this topic,
I think we lost you again. Okay, I think she dropped off. Must be network issues. All right. Who else would like to go next?
Hello everyone.
Hi, Madhu.
Hello sir, I'm Madhumita from Tamil Nadu and I do currently freelancing in WordPress development. And about the topic, it's quite much interesting working in foreign or start a new in India. Actually, India is a wide platform who can start their ideas or start their own in India because of populations and because of different cultures and it's a good platform in India. But what I think is everyone has an idea to start a business, everyone nowadays. So how it will be work for everyone, and the thing is the a person who do unique, they will success in their career or they will success in their business. And India is a right platform, but how everyone can success. And if there is a demand and supply is in right, the concept is work means we have to go out and work. And I don't know, I'm just hostilate about it, sir, about
Okay.
this topic, and I want to curiosity more how do
Mhm.
you deliver content to these topics.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of discussion. Thank you so much
Yes.
for introducing yourself, Madhu.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Who would like to go next? So Manimanan, Satyan, and Ananya, I think you guys are the only ones who haven't introduced yourself.
Hey, hi. This is Manivanan. Okay, so just now I joined. So I just want to explore about these topics. Okay, so
So Manimanan, can you tell us where you're from and what you do?
okay, yeah, I'm from Bangalore. Okay, so currently I'm doing the uh, QA job in the Accenture. Okay, so I just want to do some startup. Okay, so I'm just thinking about how to capture the client and how we can kickstart that. So I just seen the session in the meetup. So I just enrolled.
Okay, great. All right. I kind of like didn't get what you were doing. Like, are you employed or you a startup founder or what are you doing?
I'm a employed. Okay, I'm currently working as a employee. So just
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Manivanan. Okay. Anybody else who would like to introduce yourself? I think Satyan and Ananya, you guys are left. We want to quickly get done with this introduction so that we can, we know who is here and then we can start talking about the topic. So if you can quickly, take a minute to introduce yourself and then we can get started.
Yeah, hi. This is Satyan Vayode from Goa.
Hi.
I'm into environmental monitoring and consultancy services. Just wanted to understand what the topic is all about.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Satyan.
Thank you.
So once again, for people who have joined just now, right? Like I want to just quickly go over the topic again. The topic is basically high-paying jobs abroad versus starting up in India. Okay. And I think Ananya, is your audio resolved or can you try introducing yourself one more time? I think you mentioned you were a college student, right?
Yeah, sir. Am I audible now?
Yeah, now you're audible. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So basically, I'm from Karnataka, and I'm an engineering student, first year engineering student, studying in SDMIT, Ujjire. And about this topic, I think everyone should take a risk for having a startup. Yeah, it's their own opinion and it's their own priority, but I prefer to go for a startup other than going for a high paid job in abroad. I would like to stay in India and have my own startup and have my own company where I could provide jobs for the people in India.
All right.
That's what I think, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ananya. So we have somebody else join in, Chaitra. If you're comfortable with doing, it would be nice to introduce yourself. But being that you haven't joined with your audio yet, I'm just gonna get started with the topic. Okay, so I wanna bring in my perspective here so that we can open up for questions in terms of I want to open up with questions that I want to ask you guys so that we can see what people are thinking and about these things. So just to give you some context, right? My experience in this has been, I was explaining earlier that I studied in the US. I have a degree in neuroscience in the US. I went there primarily to pursue scientific research, and I had a wonderful time studying in the US. And then when it came time to when you graduate with a STEM degree in the US, you have this thing called the OPT, which gives you 2 years of a visa for you to work in an American company. So it's kind of like a work visa that you can actually gain practical experience. OPT stands for optional practical training, where you get to work with a American company and you can gain experience in the field that you have studied, right? So and I specifically picked neuroscience to study because it was the intersection of two of my very fields of interest. One was deep science, and then other was computer science. And in the field of neuroscience, there was a lot of things going on, especially in the AI space. This was 10 years ago, that I graduated, and at the time, there were a lot of interesting research projects going on at various labs, and various Silicon Valley startups were coming up in AI and all that stuff, and they would love to have somebody with a background in how the brain works and how what we understand about the human brain, and then some amount of competence in computer science. So it was a perfect opportunity for me to stay back in the US and get a secure, a really high paying job. But for various reasons, I came back. At the time, like, it was more of a personal reason, that it just that I wanted to, because a part of my research thesis was about meditation, and I really wanted to dive deeper into meditation, which is which is a thing that you can do much easier in India than in the US. So I came back to India to take a gap year, basically to travel in India and then learn meditation in much more deeper way. And that 1 year gap year turned into 7 years, and then I just never went back. So initially, it was not that I didn't. I came back because like India was like such an attractive place to like start a career or something like that. But it was more like personal reasons I came back. And as I stayed back, I just realized that US was also not an attractive place to go to for some reasons. There were some very specific things happening in the US. Like this was in 2015 when Trump was getting elected, and there was a lot of like events in the US that were very disturbing. Like a lot of violence, a lot of uh, you know like uh, like like xenophobic attitudes. Like there's a lot of anti-immigration things, and things have gotten worse now. Like right now, I think it's the height. I think most Indian people do not understand or even reflect on these concepts, these things about like whether you're welcome there or not. People think about the money it takes to go there, the money you're gonna make there, but you don't think about like uh, are you welcome there first of all. And people are happy to like go through various hoops and things put in place to go abroad, that they don't realize that it's actually a very degrading process, to stand in those long lines, like interview them. And like I recently I saw a tweet about this lady who was going to Denmark or somewhere to invest in a startup, and her visa was rejected because there is a strong sentiment in the EU that Indians are desperate to like immigrate to the EU to settle there, that they don't want that, so they make it very difficult, the whole process of getting a visa. And Indian people do not really even think about this aspect, whether you're welcome somewhere or something like that. And that is one aspect to think about. That is something that I want to like go around to like discuss this topic. And the other thing is, like, in terms of the most important focus for any Indian person is the lucrativeness of the option. Whether I've seen so many people who think that I'm an idiot to come back to India when I could have earned a lot of money in the US. And I have a lot of friends in the US who are making like $300,000 a year or something like that, working in one of these big companies, and they're the same age as me. They're just as smart as me. They're no special, nothing different about them. But they're just like they're living a much different lifestyle than compared to me. I recently quit my job here, and I was, by Indian standards, I was making a really decent amount of money. I was making like 26 lakhs a month, 26 lakhs a year, and I quit that job to start my own startup here. And even at the height of that, right, like 26 lakhs per year is pretty good for a average, like Indian person, Indian adult, who's single. And this and then my other friends in the US are comparatively making like crazy much, like a lot more money than I'm making. But $300,000 um, in India is how much? Let me just quickly do the calculation. That's like 2.5 crores, right? And and like that was one
25 crores.
aspect. Sorry.
It's 25 crores.
Sorry, 25 crores. Yeah, sorry, yeah, 25 crores. So that's one thing that actually made me think about it, because like I was, for a brief amount of time, I was thinking I need to go back to the US, and I need to get back into this game that my other friends are doing. But I'm so glad that I didn't, because India, for various reasons, India is a really good space right now for a startup to be in. And as a startup, I mean, I currently have a couple of startups. One is a non-profit tech startup, and then the other is a for-profit tech startup. So both of these are like very at the very early stages. So I cannot like comment on the success rate or something like that. I have optimism, but obviously it's not like validated. But still, I feel very confident, and I feel like this is something that I can really enjoy, because like I'm basically building up something that can outlast what they're doing. because like you're living in a country that you're not a citizen, first of all, and your rights are limited. This was actually one of the other reasons why I came back to India, that I realized the limitations of living in a country where you are not a citizen. You do not have the rights, you do not have a say in what goes on. If they say, if they decide that you're no longer welcome, you're out, you don't have a say in it. And that these are all like quality of life measures that people don't generally think about. And I would like you to invite you to think about these things as well as you consider your options. And one of the things that is exciting about being back in India at this stage is that there is a huge demographic dividend that everybody is talking about, right? That we have a young population, we have a thriving middle class who can be like great market for innovative products. So primarily the verdict, right? Like I want to like pause here so that others can respond. So the verdict that I have is that there is a certain mindset that you need to have for each of these options. Risk taking and creating a startup is not for everybody. And being an employee in a developed nation while your rights are restricted is also not for everybody. It takes a certain mindset to make the most out of each of these options. So I would say that if you're somebody with a high risk appetite, and you believe that you can confidently place a bet on yourself, which is the primary qualification for an entrepreneur, because like it's not about your product, it's about you're placing a bet on yourself. When you start a company, you believe that you have the smart, and you have the guts, and you have the safety net to go and proceed and take the risk, and still get back out of it unharmed, or at least like in not damaged to a certain extent if you fail. Then entrepreneurship is for you, regardless of where you're doing it. Okay, so that is the one side. On the other side, if you prioritize safety over safety and your family's security, and a certain level of like a developed lifestyle, right? Because obviously the lifestyle in Western nations or like developed nations are superior on so many metrics compared to the lifestyle in India. And there are certain metrics where you would say that the Indian lifestyle is better, but this is a debate for the different topic. But if you prioritize your family's security and your financial security, and you're okay to just like live a small life with minimal social engagement or social participation, then I think that settling down in a country like US would do you good. But again, there are risks in both these factors, because the risk in starting up in India is that you have a risk of failure, and it can lead to financial complications. And the risk of going abroad is that tomorrow the foreign policy of that nation may change, the immigration policy of the nation may change. And actually we are at a boiling point right now in terms of the tensions regarding immigration. If you go to Europe, UK or Australia or US, these are the places where people mostly go. And I don't know if you've been following the news in Canada as well, that there is a growing sentiment against immigrants, especially Indians, because like we are seen as people who go there and steal their jobs, and everybody's frustrated. And I saw this even 10 years ago, that people were frustrated that we were competing against them, and they had no chance, because like we are used to much higher levels of competition. We're used to like doing a lot more than they are willing to do to get the same benefits. So naturally we are like we are sought after by companies or people or who are trying to hire competent individuals for a competent salary. So there is a growing sentiment against Indian immigrants abroad. So this is also something to keep in mind. So now I'd like to stop, and I want to like open up with to hear your thoughts. Like, what do you guys think about whatever I said? And you can just like unmute yourself and go ahead, guys.
So this is funny here. Okay, so whatever you said, that makes sense, Raghu. But people will take a call whether they can go for abroad for high in salary and staying back in the India and start the startup. That is depends upon the people, their backgrounds, right? We can comment on that. Hello.
By the way, your audio is breaking up. I think but we're able to hear you, but there is like silence in between. Like I'm not sure if you're pausing or if you're not saying something, or if your audio is breaking up.
No. actually there is some issue. Okay, so I do a hammering problem. Okay,
I see. Okay.
so it is depends upon the people only. So the whatever you said, no, that inside that makes sounds good only. So
Right. Yeah, I think I mean definitely, obviously it makes it's about like you looking at your situation and then like making the choices. But yeah, like have you guys had any experience on this? Like, have you known somebody that has made the decision or come back, or they feel that they've not made the right decision? Any kind of interesting experience you would like to share, or maybe like you have thoughts on something specific that I've said in what I was saying?
Hey, Raghav.
Yeah.
So, yeah, largely what you're saying um, is correct only. However, there are pros and cons of everything, right?
Yeah.
But from what you said, and largely true, and we have also followed news from Canada and other developed countries. Xenophobia, I mean, xenophobia would be a little aggressive, I feel. There is always resentment, particularly this is an election year in America, US. So the resentment would be there. Xenophobia would be a little aggressive, is what I feel. But yes, there are always pros and cons, and one needs to weigh in their options, look at their current situation, and then proceed.
Yeah, and you guys, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but the past year, right, there's been so many instances of Indian students being killed. Have you guys noticed that in the US? They're victims of random crimes. We don't know if these are like crimes targeted because of their race and nationality, or is it they were just caught in a freak accident or something. But we have been hearing so many instances of like Indian people being harmed in a way that they would never have to face in India, right? And as well, there was a news about this one Australian student. I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was a news about this Australian student who was randomly attacked while he was out on the street, and he is now fully paralyzed. I think he can barely speak, and his parents had to go to Australia to take care of him in the hospital. And the hospital said that because they cannot like continue to offer there is some kind of like a expiration of his policy or something like that, where now he's according to Australian law he's supposed to like go back to India, but they don't have the money to relocate to India, and they cannot afford to have the services that he's currently getting over there. And there is now like a fight with the Australian government to sort of like facilitate his rehabilitation or therapy or whatever he needs. And no matter what happens, the best case scenario, even the best case scenario, this guy is like now disabled, paralyzed for life. And this is purely like a hate crime. I mean, you can argue about it, but if you just commonsensically look at it, there is a large amount of hate against Indians generally abroad in developed countries. So yeah, these kind of things are really something to think about. And I also want to ask you guys, like, has any of the things that I've said is something that is new to you? Like, you've never heard of this perspective, or is it something that you're aware of?
Not new, Raghav. Most of this is known here.
That's good. That's good.
Okay, so I do one question to all. Okay, so in India, many startups are getting failed, right? So what do you guys feel? So what is the reason the percentage of success rate is less in India?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I also want to talk about this because like this is something obviously, it's not worth taking a risk if the failure rate is like 95% or something like that. I mean, if 95% of people who are staying back to start a startup in India are doomed, destined to failure, then it makes no sense to have that as a valid option, first of all, right? And this is also something that probably we'll probably take a separate topic to discuss this fully. But just to briefly address this point, I think that a lot of Indian entrepreneurs fail to realize what it takes to have a successful startup. I think a lot of them jump in, like, thinking that they will quickly do something and then make a big amount of profit, and they realize, maybe they'll take a couple of years to realize that that is not enough. That you have to, like, inject some amount of innovation into the space. It takes a certain amount of resourcefulness. It takes a certain amount of presentation. It takes a certain amount of organization of your team, logistics, and things like that. All of these coordinated and towards directed at one cause, sustained over a long period of time. These are all the things that takes to make a startup, make a successful startup. So I think that a lot of people come in, like, they just want to, like, they don't foresee, they don't, like, plan far ahead. They just, like, try to quickly jump in, and then they try some gimmicks, and it doesn't work, and then obviously it's going to fail, right? So I think certain level of maturity has to be there. And I think we are, like, as a society, we are still, like, in a transitional phase in terms of this mindset, right? We're coming from a generation of security seekers. These are people who will go for government jobs for security, and then now suddenly we are transitioning into a generation that is found a glamour in the startup ecosystem, right? So there is obviously there needs to be a certain level of change in the mindset when you're approaching this. You cannot approach this in the same way you would approach, like, a high-end job or a secure position or something like that. So I see that a lot of people fail to realize that this change in mindset has to own up to your risks. You cannot, like, delegate risk taking to somebody else when you're the one founding a company. Everything, the burden of everything is on your shoulders, and you have to be okay with that, first of all. And I just think that my assessment of the problem is that people do not foresee enough. They just don't plan well enough. They don't foresee long enough. That is probably my take on why a lot of Indian startups are failing. And you also have to understand that when you're creating a startup, right, your success rate highly depends on how saturated your field is. If you're jumping into a field just because it's convenient and it makes sense, but there are, like, tens of thousands of other people who are also with the same mindset, you're not going to be able to differentiate yourself. You have to have a diverse experience behind you that gives you something that will make your value proposition very unique. Because, like, ultimately a startup can only succeed if you are able to sustainably generate value to your customers, whether you're a B2B company or whether you're a B2C company. You cannot succeed if you're not generating value in a sustainable manner that forces your customer to pay. Because the Indian market is also really tough. Nobody wants to pay a lot of money for anything, right? So we're dealing with a very conservative market, which means that you have to make sure that you have a really strong value proposition. And I think that is something that people don't realize. They go after, like, ideas that are sounding cool or, like, something interesting, but they don't realize that they have to do adequate research in assessing whether that value that they're generating there is a demand for it. So the market research is also something that is really weak that I've seen. And also people don't realize that they have to sustainably generate value. It's not like if you do something once and they get the value, they're going to keep coming back. You have to make sure that you're able to sustainably do so. So that is what makes for successful startups. But yeah, I want to, like, pause to hear other people's thoughts.
Anyway, right, even if the startup fails, the entrepreneur who built it made an attempt, um, will still be successful in his future life. He can close out that idea, go to the next one.
Yeah.
Although, yeah, and the experiences from that venture would be invaluable for the next.
Absolutely, yeah. But I think it takes a certain mindset, right? Like, some people, when they get hurt, right, they will just like close it down. They don't want to do it again anymore. Like, that is not a right mindset if you're a startup entrepreneur. You have to
And
you have
don't
to
be
like be
passionate.
resilient. Yeah, you have to be passionate. You have to be resilient to failures, because like if you're looking at a failure as basically a learning opportunity, then you will make a lot out of it than somebody who's like discouraged by it. But I think, yeah, again, it comes down to temperament, because like it takes certain kind of thinking
Correct.
to appreciate failures in that sense. And I think another factor is that education system, right? I think most of us go through this educational process where we are basically trained to sit as like passive recipients of like whatever is happening. And you go to a classroom, like it's usually not a very interactive space. The teacher is talking to you. You're supposed to like follow instructions and then like do things. I think that culture is also changing a little bit. I think we are modernizing in the education space as well. But majority of us have gone through an education system where we're just passive recipients, and that is the kind of attitude you need to have as an employee, right? And employees, if they ask you a lot of questions, right, they find a lot of people find it inconvenient. So they want like passive, like obedient, instruction following smart person. They want a smart person who follows instructions and doesn't talk back. And that is a good attitude to have as an employee. But as a startup founder, right, you cannot survive with that attitude. You have to have a certain level of initiative, proactiveness, a certain level of assertiveness, certain level of like leadership and agency. You need to have a certain amount of experience making decisions, visualizing plans, foreseeing, and brainstorming and taking risks. These kind of things, unfortunately, we do not have experience in as we go through our educational career in India. And that is also like a factor, because like a lot of these kids are coming out of graduation, they have a desire, but they don't have the adequate training to make decisions and learn from failures, because they have not been trained to make smaller decisions having smaller failures. If they suddenly have to make a big decision, a big failure, that takes a lot of courage, right? So that is something I see as a funnel. Like, it's something that is limiting people. Like I see, I said funnel, but like bottleneck. I see that as a bottleneck in terms of like what is limiting a high level of success rate in Indian startups. I see that.
Raghav, I was saying that
Yeah.
being resilient, about being resilient. Yeah, the other side of that would also be not be too passionate, or don't get so obsessed with your startup, with your product, or with your company, that if you come across failure, you feel doomed, or you cannot
Yeah.
get out of it and go and work on something else. So your
Yeah.
passion also need to be limited in that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there is a balance, right? When you're talking about successful startups, like I've seen people get too attached to the product or something, and they don't realize that it's a dead end what they're trying to do. So instead of getting attached and realizing 2 years down the line that you're completely bankrupt and you cannot proceed anymore, like foreseeing that, again, foresight is really important when you're getting into the startup industry. Foreseeing that you are you're walking on a path that is a dead end, and then retracting, early exits, right? When you're instead of like waiting for 2 years to find out that this you're working on a product that is not going to work, and then realizing that 2 years ahead of time, it's a huge advantage, right? You have to be able to learn not just from your own mistakes, but you should learn from other people's mistakes. You should also like foresee a potential failure and respond to it. So that is what like makes entrepreneurship really exciting for somebody like me. Like I love solving problems. I love taking initiative, and I like to do something epic rather than doing something mediocre. Because like I feel like if I took a job abroad making $300,000 working at Dell or Amazon or something, and where I'm getting a 9 to 5 job and basic stuff. Um, so I feel like that would be such a boring life. I feel like I'm not really preparing for a life that is like exciting, where I'm like looking forward to what's going to happen. Because like I feel like most of these people, when they hit a 40 or something like that, they feel like fatigued. They have a lot of money, but they just feel like there is no excitement or enthusiasm in whatever they are having to do. And that is probably my like it's a nightmare situation. Failing a startup is probably not as dreadful as like aging into a situation where you're there is no excitement, right? And I feel like more Indians need to like prioritize that excitement, enthusiasm in life as well. And even this issue of this passionate this thing, right? You're getting too passionate to your product, and that is, I think, that is not a huge problem, because like in my view, right, if you're working on something and you're really passionate about solving that problem, even with repeated failures, you will learn to pivot. You will learn from experiences. If you have the temperament to learn from experiences, right, you will learn from that, and you will like take a different approach, and you try to do that thing in different ways. So for example, right, like my first startup is basically a non-profit, and I was trying to like reform the educational atmosphere in India. Like we want to create a space where we are solving those problems that I described, where people don't have the agency. I want to create an approach to education that is like purely driven by the instinct of the individual, the passion of the individual, rather than this mindset of like, I want to score high in exams so that I can get in a good college, so that I can get a good degree, so that I can go to a good job, and then I can live a good life. That mindset has to go. I feel like people have to learn to take pleasure in the process of learning, the pleasure in the process of creating things. And I think if you do that, right, you're going to create a large enough number of entrepreneurs in India who would be able to employ the other people who don't have that temperament. And that is probably the future. And that was my first startup, and I would say that we've not seen we've seen a moderate levels of success. We have not seen like a it's not like something that has gone viral or something like that. I've helped like maybe like a few hundred kids per year to learn coding, and they're able to build websites, and it's a really new thing for them. The kids, the hundreds of kids that we've helped, it's like a it's a unique thing in their life. These are village students, tribal students that I helped to learn coding, and they can now build a website on their own and deploy it online. And these are not things that you would typically expect a 12 to 14-year-old kid to be able to do. So we developed a system to do that on scale. But unfortunately, because we don't have the sufficient amount of network, and I'm not doing it full time because it's a non-profit. I don't have any income in there, so I'm only doing it part time. And I would say, some people would look at that and say that it's actually like it's a failed idea or something like that. But what I see is like it's an idea where I have to do something fresh to do something different. So I'm actually trying new things now. So I'm passionate about the problem, and I'm passionate about the way I'm approaching things. But even despite failure, now my mindset is not that I failed. It's more that the mindset is that, okay, what do I do differently to succeed? And I think that kind of passion is actually healthy, right? So I would not say that getting too attached to your problem you're trying to solve is necessarily bad. It's about like whether you are adaptable enough to change. That is the important thing. And I was going to say, like, some of you are kind of quiet. I would love to hear some of your thoughts, even if you feel like you don't have a lot to say, but just to see, like, what you guys think about whatever we've discussed so far. I would love to hear your thoughts, get you more engaged.
Hello, sir. You said you faced you shared your experience over there and there. You are over and abroad and over and startup. That was good and great. And about the sessions, what I'm feeling means going abroad is helps for financially, and it's
Mm,
also might be considered that there is an issues like food, and you said attack
mm,
and limitations that is also to be
mm,
considered, and also the financial is also to be considered. And of course it's based on their perspective. And what I feel is to starting in our own country. That is the the motto of this topic. If not only in India or China, starting their own startup in their own country is far good for uh, their professions and for their careers. And that's it about those ideas.
Thank you so much for sharing, Madhu. Actually, you brought up an interesting thing. And now that I think about it, right, like actually there is a unique case where it is actually good to go abroad. Because like I would say that my education abroad has been phenomenal. I would say that it's been a phenomenal force in my own sense of
Okay.
fulfillment and things like that. Because I went to the US, I got to see a lot of how things work there. And I mean, I would say that my education in the US was like something that I profoundly am grateful for, because
Mm.
like I would never have gotten that experience in India. No way. Because like I spent some time in higher education in India, and I hated it
Mm.
so much. And in the US, it's a completely different culture. It's like they're very respectful to you, even if you're a student, right?
Mm.
And you have a lot more opportunities. There is a certain level playing field. You know, you can actually talk to your professors, and the classrooms are engaging,
Mm.
and it's a very respectful environment, which is unfortunately lacking in India. I feel like you get mistreated, and that's somehow normalized. There is
Mm.
no collaborative professional environment where you get to collaborate on projects across disciplines.
Yes.
But especially when I was there, like they made it a point to incentivize cross disciplinary collaboration.
Okay.
You had to collaborate with other disciplines to gain certain perks. And
Mm.
that was something that I had a lot of enriching experience in the US. So I would say that for a lot of people, right, like having that experience and opening up, broadening that horizons, like meeting people from different countries. Because like one of the things about going to the US to study is that there are literally people from all across the world coming to your college. Because like American higher education institutions, they do a lot to ensure international diversity. They
Mm.
actually, I know people who have received full scholarships to study in the college. Like it takes like $50,000 or something like that per year,
Yes.
to sustain your education. And there are people who have received full scholarships simply because they were the only person in from that country. They have
Mm.
applied to that college, and the college really wanted to have this person, even though like they were not really any smarter or any special or something, because they
Mm.
wanted to diversify the student base so that everybody gets to have a internet, healthy like exposure to international environment. These are things that you would never ever find in an Indian institution. Even
Okay.
IITs, they do a terrible job of like being appealing to an international audience.
Mm.
There are not enough international presence in Indian institutions, so you're not going to get that exposure living in India. So
Mm.
if you want to if you go abroad, you're definitely going to have an enriching experience in terms of your exposure and
Mm.
everything. And honestly, like that would honestly like boost your chances of success as an entrepreneur even in India when you come back. Because like I
Mm.
don't believe that I would have the experience or the certain mindset or thinking or exposure that I do have now if I had
Mm.
stayed back in India the whole time. It would have taken a lot more effort, lot more of resourcefulness to achieve the same level of uh, you know I guess like innovative thinking or something like that if you've not had those experiences.
Yes, and
So
of course, sir, if something or someone is going to abroad means, or our neighborhood or our relatives going abroad means, they increase our curiosity to go there and work there or study there.
yeah.
Uh, without thinking about it, you graduated in neuroscience like that field. This is a kind of science field, right? And you
Mhm.
came for a startup. How you relate your startup and your graduate degree?
So, I mean, I have to talk about like why I wanted to study neuroscience, right? So one of the reasons, actually, I went to the US. When I went to the US, I actually studied physics because like my interest was in like understanding the universe, the reality, and things like in a deep way. And
Mm.
India was a terrible place to do that. I actually spent a year studying in a top college in India in physics, and I just found that there was no focus on physics. I could not even talk to the head of the department or the physics professors to
Okay.
emphasize my interest in deep science and physics, because even they were like the normal mindset in India is that you go to college to get a job. There is no other
Yes.
motivation for to go to college, right? And it was really hard to convince them that I'm going to college because I want to learn. I want to get deep into the thing. And
Mm.
it was really not a good environment. So a main reason why I went there was to have a research experience that would put me in the frontiers of science. I want to be at the forefront of human discovery, because like that is my main appeal to go there. And I spent a year studying physics, and then I transferred out to study neuroscience. because like I just felt like neuroscience was a more nascent field. There was a lot more scope for discovery, and of course, like it helps you understand yourself when you understand the human brain. So for those reasons, I switched out to study neuroscience, and actually I had to do some research as part of my program, and I learned so much while doing the research. And what happened was that one of my components of the research was like meditation. I was
Okay.
studying the scope of like pathological, like depression, schizophrenia, all these things, these disorders, and your cognitive
Oh,
activities, and
understand.
how meditation can affect those cognitive activities and the outcome of those disorders. And what I realized from the research was that meditation has a huge impact on the overall productiveness, cognitive efficiency, and everything. And so I started meditating, just like I learned some techniques on YouTube, and I started meditating. I would spend like maybe 3 minutes a day or something meditating. That gradually went to 30 minutes a day, and I started
Mm.
seeing like huge boosts in my productivity. I was doing a lot more than anybody else was doing. Even what I was doing prior to starting to meditate, my lifestyle changed completely, and that was a huge personal change that brought about in meditation. So then like I said, I came back to India because I wanted to get deeper into this, because like as a scientist, right, like you crave process that gives you more insight. And I realized that meditating actually showed me a lot more about my human, like my mind and
Mm.
human brain than studying neuroscience did, which is the reason why I actually like completely let go of the academic pursuit of research and started researching more into yoga and meditation. So I
Okay.
spent 7 years studying meditation and yoga deeply in India, and I was like mostly unemployed at the time. And then I started learning. I was volunteering, and I learned coding on my own, and then started volunteering at these places. And that's actually how I got into the IT industry. And then now, like somehow, my both my ventures are completely based on tech space, and I'm building tech products, because like throughout my volunteering and all that, I learned how to build end to end, how to build all the tech products that I need to build. So I'm
Mm.
leveraging that right now. So what I studied and what I'm doing are completely different, but there was a process that is consistent throughout the whole thing, where I'm just like doing whatever makes sense and whatever feels right and whatever feels good.
Okay.
And that's what I've been doing, and I keep doing that every day. Like even now, like I'm going for products that make sense, that give me a sense of fulfillment. And
Mm.
thankfully I've had the backing. My parents are backing me in everything. And I think that's also
Mm.
another thing, that Indian parents don't typically allow your kids to take risks. And thankfully
Yes.
I've not been in a situation where my parents support me whenever I make a decision. And
Mm.
so that's been helpful.
Oh, that's great, sir. Because I'm also from a science graduate as a zoologist,
Yeah.
and I'm went for a development now, software development and website developer now. And what I'm feel is studied somewhere. I mean, some studied some in the field and working some in the field. And hear about yours, some you spent some years and years of years in studying, and you went for abroad for studying and come now you are in technically employed. That's so inspiring for us, like different background from working in a different field. It's great, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
And I think that's another topic, like this whole topic of like what you study versus what you do. I feel like
Yes.
in the Indian context, it is so common to find people who are studying something and then end up doing something completely different. And I feel like
Actually,
that.
many of us, are not only related one, even engineering graduates or engineering students can work with an uh, technically worked, technically skilled in codings or other related works. And also from arts background, also they comes to know the codings.
Exactly.
That's what people think, and what others says means we actually we don't consider any social talks, but we are in India, so we have to consider that the social implements to us. And what they say is studied where and worked where, even they are failure, they are success in that field, they don't ask. And if they are failed, it means they are the point corner. And if that is
Yeah.
what I'm feeling now. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, I think in the Indian context, right? Like when we talk about the what field of study you want to get into, I find it so shocking that nobody even thinks about like what is your interest. Nobody asks a child
Yes.
what do you want to study. They will the unanimous consensus is that you are meant to pick your degree based on the market, because they in their mind, right, they made the assumption that the only purpose of education is to secure a job. There is no purpose of education other than that. There is no purpose of learning
Yes.
something.
It's
They're
exactly
very
what you said.
practical thinkers, and they think that the whole point of a college is to provide you with the validation so that you're qualified for a job. It is not to educate you. And that is
Mm.
a mindset that I'm really frustrated by. Like, I can't even explain to these people, like, that education is all about like you as a human being learning about something. That's the end of
Yes.
education. And if you're empowered with your knowledge, obviously
Mm.
you are more competent at a job than somebody who's not. And that's how this a job is a side effect. That is not the main thing, and education is the main thing. And that is
Yes.
hard to explain to a lot of Indian people. I've actually had arguments with my professors in Indian college where I
Okay.
disagreed on the fundamental purpose of education. They said that Indian education system is so superior because like all these like big tech, like all these people are making a lot more money than people from other countries. They're able to pass exams much faster. They're able to
Mm.
pass these are not the outcomes of education. First of all, outcome of
Yes.
education is that you reach a certain level of maturity in your understanding of reality, or you're able to be competent at doing something. that is the that is the purpose of education. I think it's really hard to convince, and if you're stuck in a family where your parents are adamant about like your choice of what you should study, I feel like that is such an unfortunate situation. I feel like so many people are suffering that right now. They don't
Yes.
have the choice to study what they want to study. So many people, like even I actually work with a lot of interns, and they also say that this is not their first choice, but they've had to do that because unfortunately they were forced to do that.
Mm. Mm.
And if you're struggling a life where you're being forced to do something that you don't like, how can you excel at it? Psychologically it's impossible. People don't realize this.
Mm. Ah,
And guys, like we held this session for an hour, but I want to like extend in case you guys have something else to say. I would love to invite you to speak up. Don't be quiet. Just share your thoughts, because like that's what it's supposed to be. Where you get to share your thoughts.
So,
Yeah.
just one question, Prabhu. Okay. So,
Mhm,
you are the host for this event. Okay. So,
mhm.
what is the key takeaway from this session? So, may you know what is the reason you created this event? What do you want to get it out of from this event?
Right. Thank you for asking that, because that's also an important thing, right? Why we do anything, right? And so first, I'd like to talk about why I started the startup club, and then we'll talk about this. The whole point of the startup, because they're related, the answers are related. The reason why I started the startup club is that I really want to network with people who are also like of a like-mindedness, or they're in a certain similar space. So there are very few opportunities for networking with the startup ecosystem in India. There are like few events here and there, but they're mostly concentrated in Bangalore or something like that. I'm in Chennai, by the way, and sometimes it's really hard to find people to engage in intellectual discussions. So we've been doing like for the past year we've been conducting networking events and things like that. But this brainstorming session was something that came up when we were having one of those networking sessions, because like the point of the networking session is to meet new people. But what ended up happening was that in one of the networking sessions we had people saying, talking about the various problems they're facing and things like that. And then one of them suggested that we should have like a dedicated session for discussing these things, because the networking session is just for like introducing and meeting new people. So then we started this idea of like creating a brainstorming session. Now the topic for this session came from one of the forms. We have a form in our official website, the startupclub.info. I'm going to paste the link in the chat. um, so we have a form for people to suggest topics. Okay. So this was a topic suggested by one of the members, and I think I was particularly excited because like I want to have an avenue to discuss with other people about like what they think about something, because like we don't get to do that often enough, because like we hear news about what's going on, or we hear like small groups talking about things, but we don't really get to see what a larger group of people get to think about something. So the main reason for this session was to like get to hear from other perspectives. But I feel like I've talked the most of the time, but I would like to. That's why I was asking, like if you guys would like to share your thoughts, that would be great. So just for me, it's about like getting to know other people's thoughts and perspectives on things. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, Raghu. Actually, I joined this session with blank mindset. Okay, so I do a plan to start. Uh, everybody have the ambition to start up, but due to some financial and those things, there are many concerns will be there. So that's why people are still sticking to the full-time job as a employee. So I just want to come out of this full-time activity. So as a part-time, we can start the startup if we feel so. As an Indian, we always in the safer end. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why I joined this session. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, this is a good point as well, because like it does take a certain level of risk taking to succeed in this space, you know. And one of the things is that if you're doing what you're suggesting, right, working a full time job and then in the side you're doing a startup, that's totally fine. And actually, I started my current startup, right. I actually started working on it a little bit, like maybe let's say like mid last year, 2023, like July or something like that. I started, getting more involved in it while I was doing my full time job. And I know I had a comfortable job, like working remotely, as a business analyst. I was, like very, there was not a huge task load or something like that, and the timings were all like, I don't know about other companies in India, but our timings were like, very flexible and not that intensive. So I had the room to like work on other things. But eventually it came to a point where I had to make a decision. If I cannot succeed if I'm doing a mediocre job at the startup scene. I have to take the risk of like taking a year off to work full time on this thing.
Okay.
I think that's a good bet, like good balance, where you say that, okay, you know what, I'm going to take a year or two off, and I'm going to do that with a certain level of savings. Because I have some savings too from whatever job I was doing. I have some savings. I have a runway. I can depend on myself. I don't have to like get to a point where my family's on the streets if I don't earn or something. Um, so if you create that level of like a minor safety net for a create a runway, and then if you get to a point where you are out of money and you're out of success, or you're not doing anything productive, then you can obviously go back to the job market. You can find a new job. And I've done this 2 times so far. Like, when I first started my first startup in 2020, I quit my job so that I can focus fully on my first non-profit startup. And I spent a year building my product and everything end to end. And I made a lot of mistakes. The primary mistake I made was that I was doing everything on myself. I didn't have a team. I did end to end everything on my own. And looking back, I feel like that is a mistake, because like when you have a team, it actually makes a lot of things easier. And so I eventually ran to a point where I didn't have any money, nothing, everything was depleted. I had no income, nothing was there. So I got back into the job market again. And then this time I got a much better job than what I left in 2020. And I was able to like get back into the financial stability. So I spent a couple of years working in that job, and then I decided to quit again to start my second startup now. So this is where I am. And obviously we don't know where I'm going to be in a year from now, but I'm pretty sure that I've learned enough to build my next success, right? My next venture is going to be more successful than my first. um but both of them are still alive. It's not like my first venture is dead or something. It's just reached a certain level of plateauing. So I'm going to work on, because now I have the full time, like my time is my own. And in the past 2 years, that is something that I really missed a lot, because like when you're working full time for a company, it's really hard to do anything for yourself. So that is a change that has happened, and I'm enjoying this new phase.
Okay, Raghu. Actually, it sounds good. Okay. So, my last request is, can you ping your LinkedIn profile ID in the chat window so we all can be in group?
Yeah. So actually, and if you go to the official website, right, there is a Telegram group, and I'm the owner of the group. So you can actually message me directly on Telegram. And let me also send you my LinkedIn ID. Hold on. So we use our Telegram group is actually a place for you to meet other people in the ecosystem. So please feel free to come and post your requests in the Telegram channel, whether you are a founder or you're a aspiring entrepreneur or something else. You will have requirement to networking is a huge deal in the startup system. So that's the reason why I'm running the startup club. So just come to the Telegram channel and post about yourself and there, and you can connect with other like-minded people and brainstorm and discuss your product ideas, whatever. So I hope that is helpful.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, Raghu. Actually, when I switch back to the other window, so the Zoom is getting disconnected.
No worries, no worries. You can just copy the link and then you can do it once we end the call.
Okay.
Speaking of which, I think we have reached a time limit. Any other closing thoughts before we close from any of you? How did you find this session? Was this helpful? Would you want to participate again?
Okay. So from my end, Raghu, so I got the good
The
insight.
session
Okay,
was
so
good.
I'm not given the any background from my end. I'm not given the any input to the others, so I can give some my input in the upcoming session. So for this session, I took the many insight from your end.
Okay, that's wonderful to hear. Thank you so much, Manivan. Prasanna, you were saying something?
The session was good, Raghav. Good perspectives I got from you and good insights as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Prasanna. I hope you have some clarity as to what you want to do. Like you in the beginning, you were mentioning about whether you thinking about whether you want to go abroad or start in India. Do you feel like any changes has happened in the way of thinking or inputs has changed?
Uh, no, there are plenty more parameters involved, and yeah, it's not it's not there is no quick answer to that. So yeah, but still good to get these perspectives. So yeah, thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time on a Sunday to come and have this discussion. So we will be having the sessions moving forward. So you will find all of our sessions in the meetup group. This is a link is available in the official website.
All
Thanks,
right, thank
Prasanna.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.